So Chair, I'll just let you know when to start.
We appreciate the outputs, Jimmy.
I know.
Okay, you can start
We're
whenever
good,
you're ready.
Joyce.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback, but I'll start anyway. Hi, my name is Jimmy Palmieri, and I'm the chair of the West Hollywood Human Services Commission. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to make a comment on, a land acknowledgement statement. The West Hollywood Human Services Commission acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Quiche peoples. I'm sorry, I forgot how to say that. And also in an effort to protect the public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19 coronavirus, AB 361 has authorized public meetings to take place via teleconference because state and local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. To view the Human Services Commission meeting, please note that the Zoom platform is the official viewing platform for this meeting. To afford the public with an additional viewing option and in order to expand access to our public meetings, this meeting is also being live streamed as a courtesy on YouTube at youtube.com/WehoTV. However, because YouTube is a third party and operates independently from the City of West Hollywood, the streaming reliability cannot be guaranteed. Let's see. Can I get I'll now call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Borelli,
No, that sounds good. I am here.
Commissioner Byers,
Here.
Commissioner Darvish.
He won't be here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Here.
Vice Chair Meltzer,
Here.
Chair Palmieri.
Yes, here. Thank you very much. Can Dee possibly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Absolutely, Chair.
Thank you.
Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
And
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
And please, I'm sorry, just as a reminder, I ask that everyone please keep your cameras off until it is your item on the agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee. The approval of the agenda is next, but I also want to make note that for the last time, we will be including the changes in the minutes at this time. And it's been brought to my attention that there might be some changes. Is there anyone that has a change? Commissioner Borelli?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I sent a minor edit to staff over the weekend on the minutes. Unfortunately, I didn't think I was going to be called this quickly to go over them. I think did staff receive that rough change? It had to do with my request on the budget under commissioner comments. And
it was received, Commissioner Borelli. You wanted to make the distinction that there should be requests for additional funding for social services, not specific to transportation services.
ooh, you're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we can move on to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a call on that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, can I get a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Borelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Byers,
Aye.
Commissioner Darvish is absent. Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Meltzer,
Yes.
Chair Palmieri.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes.
Joyce, are there any Joyce or Dee, are there any public comments at this point?
We didn't have any public comments that signed up in advance, but I will check. If anyone would like to speak during public comment, please use the raise hand feature and you'll be called upon to speak. You will have 3 minutes to speak. So if anyone would like to say anything for public comment, please use the raised hand feature.
All right, and while we're doing that, I will read the Human Services Commission values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, Human Services Commission cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. The public comment period is to address the Human Services Commission on agenda items or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the Human Services Commission. An additional public comment period is offered at the end of this meeting.
Okay, so it looks like we have a raised hand from Myra Friedman. Myra, go ahead and unmute yourself and you may begin. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I just wanted to come on and say 3 years ago, I came in front of you as the chair of the Disability Advisory Board, and Commissioner Borelli was the chair at the time, I believe, and it was the biggest thrill of my life. And here I'm coming on as a private citizen just to say thank you. I consider you the Cadillac, the Rolls Royce of all the commissions, because of all the commissions, I think you do the most for the people, person to person. And I appreciate that so much. If it hadn't been for JFS and for DCRC this past year, my life would have been a lot more miserable, and they have helped me so much. And that's because of your decisions. And I just really just wanted to say thank you and how much I admire all of you for your hard work. That's all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Any others, Joyce?
Let's see, it doesn't look, no, we don't have any others. So you may proceed.
Okay. Consent calendar, the approval of the minutes is already in. So we will, I just want to say out loud that there is on the consent calendar, the approval of minutes is already included. Joyce, is there something that you wanted to say to us regarding minutes and the consent calendar?
Yes, so starting with our next meeting for July, we will be switching back to the previous format of the agenda and minutes. We had a recent meeting with Melissa, the city clerk, and Melissa, and they had instructed us to switch back to the original format. And this is just to keep all of the boards and commissions consistent with the formatting of the agendas and minutes. So we didn't do it for this meeting because we wanted to let you know in advance, and just expect that the next meeting will be under a new format. And so the minutes and the agenda will be under the same section rather than consent calendar.
Thank you so much, Joyce. So at this stage, because I've never fully understood this, we don't have to take a roll call on the consent calendar as the minutes were approved by default. Is that
Correct.
true? Okay.
That's correct.
All right. 3, new business. APLA Health's HIV Elders Program. I believe this is going to Brian Riesli. But I also think that Derek will follow up with that, yes?
Yes, Chair. So I'll introduce both Emmanuel Sanchez Ramos and Brian Riesli to discuss the HIV Elders Program. This is a relatively new program that we began funding in 2019, and it's been very successful. I'm going to get their PowerPoint started. So Emmanuel, Brian, please go ahead and let me know when to transition the slides. So we do that right now.
Okay. Can everyone see my image? Because I'm not seeing it on my Zoom screen.
I can see it. Can everyone else see it?
Okay. Well, good. Thank you to City of West Hollywood Human Services Commission and to Social Services for inviting us to present on the HIGH program. And like Derek said, the city's been invested in this program since 2019. We started the program in 2018. Next slide. And just to give you an overview, we launched what was originally called HIV in older adults. HIVE is an acronym for HIV elders, and that name was created by our community advisory board. And HIVE was created in response to primarily findings from Apla Health's Healthy Living Project, which was a research project that was taken over the course of, I believe, 2 years, involved multiple focus groups with multiple demographics in Los Angeles County with people who were 50 and older to pretty much identify the needs of older adults living with HIV in the county. And one of the primary concerns out of multiple focus groups was housing stability, no surprise there, financial insecurity, and a reported high level of depression, anxiety, and loneliness. And this was before COVID. That was primarily due to aging, HIV stigma, age stigma, and other and LGBTQ stigma, and loss of social networks for a lot of our long-term survivors, losing a lot of their friends early on and now losing them all over again in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Next slide. So the overarching goal of HIVE is to improve the health outcomes. We're talking about the social determinants of health. So adherence to HIV care, treatment, and reduction in hospital visits of HIV positive men who have sex with men 50 years of age and older in LA County by addressing many of the psychosocial burdens that interact with the experience of aging with HIV. Again, we mentioned depression, we mentioned isolation, some other mental health issues. That would be the psychosocial burdens. HIVE provides services to over 500 men who have sex with men in the metro area of Los Angeles, in Long Beach and South Los Angeles. Those are 3 areas in LA County where HIV currently has the greatest impact per the 2020 Los Angeles County Department of Public Health surveillance reports. We do have numbers on the city of West Hollywood, but I don't think we put them in this presentation. Next slide. What the city of West Hollywood is primarily funding are life skills workshops, and these have been very successful. I have to honestly say much more successful pre-COVID, when we had use of the community room at the library or other West Hollywood Park spaces where we could get more people. So typically we would reach 40 to 50 MSM 50 plus every month, and that number has since dwindled because of COVID and going virtual with these programs, and now starting to reintroduce them live again. So our psychosocial education trainings range in topics, and the life skills workshops have been most successful starting in October 2018, and the city funding them starting in 2019. And so we conduct 12 workshops a year. It's typically on the 3rd Thursday of each month, and we're currently in our 4th year of programming and finding new inspirational and motivational presenters. In 2020, we went virtual due to COVID, as I said, but we've been transitioning back to in-person trainings, and we certainly look forward to being able to return to the community room or another very good West Hollywood Park community space. And over the last 4 years, our presenters have regularly, we sort of have a roster of favorites Dr. Neva Chapet, Antonia Lamont, who is a life coach and currently on Fox Soul's The House, and Damon Jacobs, who's a LMFT in New York. He's a national speaker on prevention, on being LGBTQ plus, and talks a lot on aging intimacy. And so he travels out to LA occasionally, and we always take advantage of that. Next slide, I think, is going to be Emmanuel.
Yes, that will be me. Hi, everyone. My name is Emmanuel. I am the program coordinator for our program Hive. And I'm excited to be here and talk to you about our wonderful program and how beneficial it's been for a lot of the folks in West Hollywood, in the city of West Hollywood. So I'm excited to tell you about the fun parts that we do, the fun things programming that we put together for our life skills workshop. I'm reporting a little bit on our Q3, so our quarter 2. So this is just programming from just a few months ago, starting from January to March. We've conducted a monthly, like Brian said, a monthly life skills workshop. In January, we had Brian Sonia Wallace, who is the City of West Hollywood Poet Laureate. He conducted a great writing workshop titled Smart Start the New Year. And it was to engage clients in sharing their narratives, sharing their wishes. And together the clients created this group poem for the new year. So it's just kind of nice to come into a space where they could share a little bit about, just what is it like for the new year? Brian Sonia Wallace is also conducting multiple cycles of our Hives Writers Workshop in 2022, and we hope to continue next year. In February, Hive hosted, like we said, Antonio Lemons, who is a great motivational speaker. We titled it Grading Clear in 2022. And Antonio did this interactive workshop that asked clients to share their views mainly and their goals for the upcoming year. We're trying to be very motivational. Let's look forward with, like, we've been in this pandemic for long. So how do we look forward to the future? And he provided them a plan to achieve their goals. So we talked a lot about that. In March, we hosted Damon Jacobs too, with Life After Two Pandemics. So Damon's interactive workshop, kind of allowed clients just to explore ways of regulating stress and incorporating activities and discussing what promotes wellness and joy for our clients. Damon also discussed barriers to social re-engagement. So what are the barriers that are preventing our clients right now from re-engaging again socially, and methods of coping with fears and obstacles. So this is what we did in Q2. If we go to the next slide, please, we'll discuss a little bit of Q3, which is the quarter that we're currently on. In April, we had a wonderful Emmy Award nominee producer, Jane Cantillon, who did art therapy for our clients, where clients had the opportunity to create art while there was a guitar accompaniment, and just utilizing, bilateral brain stimulation to just get their, cognitively thinking, and they get their brains going in different ways. And Jane did a fantastic job with that, with some beautiful music. And in May, we hosted a guided meditation session with Brian Riesli. And the session was just for anyone who was in need of healing, motivational centering, and mindfulness. And unfortunately, for our June Life Skills Workshop, Dr. Neva Chapet had to bow out, unfortunately, but she is being replaced by our wonderful HIV positive, published poet, Dare Williams, who is going to conduct a unique story research workshop. And this is happening in a couple of days. So I'm just excited to be in this space and hopefully create some wonderful memories with her. And I'm sure our clients will love it. If we go to the next slide, I am going to show you just this is our branding per se of Hive. It's just flyers that promote. So if you ever see these flyers around, this is from our Hive program. So please share them if you can. That'd be great. Next slide. So the next two slides are just going to show you some data. You might be like, oh my God, numbers, what is this? Super simple to understand. I just want you to get a feel of what we mean with like our reporting. So every month we send our monthly evaluation to collect data just to see if our life skills workshop is creating some sort of changes in our clients' perspective and just views of their lifestyle, their social engagement. So this question asks clients if they feel more involved and connected with peers since participating in the event. And if you can see for the months of Q2, January, February, March, you'll see that it did increase over the lapse of a few months on the strongly agree and the agree sections. And we stayed away from those disagrees, strongly disagrees. We did have some disagrees and neutral in January, but by March, that sort of changed. And you see that contrast between those two different months, or 90 days. And then the next question on the next slide, please. It asks, since participating in Hive events, my outlook to the future has improved. And again, evaluating those 3 months, January through March, we see some sort of change there where we want more on the strongly agree and agree section and less of that disagree and strongly disagree. And you can see that over the months on the disagree section, it did decrease. And our hope is that, we create a lot of this programming to see a lot of the future, like what is it that I want to move forward? What are my goals? What are my objectives? And we incorporate our life skills to do that, to how do I make sure that I don't get stuck in this isolation and loneliness and move forward and look forward to the future. And while data does show that it does change, just being interactive, I am in every event with them, and I see how their effort of just trying to get out and really participate and be more social. And I'm just excited to show you a little bit of a glimpse of our program in this. I believe the next slide is just a thank you slide. There it is. Yay, we're done. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Derek, did you have anything to follow up with that? Where's Derek?
I'm here. I don't have any follow-ups, but if you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer.
So what I'd like to do is go around and ask the commissioners if they have any questions or comments. I'd like to start with Commissioner Borelli.
Really no comments. Great report. Appreciate the enthusiasm. I know how important this is to the community. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
I would agree with Commissioner Borelli. Thank you very much. No actual questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Byers.
No questions, just a lot of gratitude. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. Commissioner Freiberg.
Just ditto to all of that. Thank you, Brian and Emmanuel.
Vice Chair, thank you. Vice Chair Meltzer.
Great programs. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Brian Sonia Wallace, our poet laureate, who is all over the place doing absolutely wonderful things. And your programs are really fabulous. I do have one question. David, Project Rainbow, do you remember Project Rainbow, which met at the company? Is there any connection there? Because I visited that once, and it was an organization that is for LGBT elders, but mostly men. I didn't see any women when I was there. And I'm just wondering if you've had any connection with them.
Are you asking David Juni?
Well, David, it's still, I just read, it's part of that it's starting again in July 8th, I think, or 6th. And it might be really good to make a connection with that group to see if you can get more people. It's mostly elder men. That's all I know. So, but I think it might be good. And your work is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Meltzer. I just want to thank you. And the last slide before the thank you, it made me really happy that the improvement for the future and future hopes are higher than they were. That's with this type of situation. Having hope for the future is sometimes the best medicine, and I appreciate your work and your help. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What is next here? For unfinished business, the 21-22 mid-year report on social services programs. I think David is going to start with this. and then it will go on.
I will start, although I feel like Emmanuel should give this report. It might be a lot more fun. But anyway, thank you both, Emmanuel and Brian. That was really great. So yes, I'm David Juni. I'm the manager of the Social Services Division for the City of West Hollywood. And here we are. This is the mid-year report on social services programs for the 2021-22 contract year. This is the third and final year of this current funding cycle. So what we are, first, actually, before I jump in there, I want to say thank you, of course, to all of the providers. And we've got a number of folks on this call. So if there's, an opportunity, if there's questions that arise, we've got folks available. Along with the staff report, you will see that there are 3 attachments that we include. Attachment A is a summary of progress towards goal for significant categories for each of the programs that are currently contracted to provide services. Attachment B, we take the scope of services page and the narrative page from each of the Q2, quarter 2 program reports and merge them. Not only of how folks are doing towards their agreed upon goals, but also that narrative really is an opportunity to share information that the numbers don't illustrate. So hopefully you'll learn more about the programs, whether it's accomplishments or challenges. That's really what the narrative is for. And then attachment C, I'm going to go over briefly with you before, and that's the demographics that we collect from the cover page of the program reports. And then I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, Social Services Supervisor, and then program administrators, so they can give brief reports on the contracts that they oversee. So I'm going to share my screen and just go briefly through the demographic reports. Got too much on my computer. Let's see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So this is the demographics, as I mentioned, taken from the cover page of each of the program reports. This is for Q2, which ends March, the end of March, March 31st, 2022. So we've got, I'm going to give you a little comparison of where we are this year compared to the same point last year. Some of this is a little bit of a repeat, but for the newer commissioners, I want to give them a good visual. So this first chart shows the age of clients served, the age cohort, the age range that has the most access to services is the 24 to 39-year-old, and then closely followed by 40 to 59-year-olds. Seems sometimes a little odd, folks accessing services at such an early age. You'll see later on that a lot of the service access for the younger cohorts is to sexual health services, HIV testing, STI, STD testing, and treatments. This is access to services by gender. Men account for 60% of all individuals served by the city social services contracted agencies. Women account for 38%. This actually, the men is slightly up from the midpoint last year. It's up 5%. Women are accessed by women or community members who identify as women is exact same percentage as last year, 38%. And then gender information was unknown for 2% of the folks who access services. You'll see here at the bottom, total clients 5,502. So that is the number of community members served during this first 6 months. This is up by 2% over the midpoint last year. So even though folks are still challenged with COVID and the new variants, we are seeing numbers and access to service slightly increase. Once again, so here's your client age by gender. You'll see that the 24 to 39-year-olds and the 40 to 59 age cohorts have the highest access, especially by males. Males are represented by the blue bar, female by the green, and turquoise is unknown. So you'll see men 40 to 59, there's your highest number. I think it's 1,130, 24 to 39, 1,099. Women fairly consistent, which is a little bit different because we usually see a little bit more increase as women age as community members who identify female age. This time around, it's a little bit more consistent in the numbers. By ethnicity, racial identity, we have 63% of clients identify as whites. Sorry, I've got emergency responders going by. This is slightly down from the midpoint last year. Last year, 65% of clients accessing services identified white. Hispanics account for 12%. This is slightly up. It was 11% last year. 6% identify Black. That is the exact same as last year. And then we have a slight increase in community members who identify Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, and other. Household language, 77% clients identify English as their household language. This is up from last year, which is 68%. 16% clients identified Russian as their household language. This is down from last year, which was 19%. Spanish remained the same at 3%. And then 4%, which is down from last year, from 10%, identify a language other than English, Russian, or Spanish as their household language. Transgender clients served, this went up. This has gone up from last year. We have a total of 184 clients who were reported as transgender or non-binary, gender non-conforming. 124 of those were reported as trans female, 23 trans male, 37 non-binary or gender non-conforming. This is up from 134 clients last year at the same point. Client gender by service category, I won't go through all of this, but this kind of shows you that high number of community members who identified male, and the younger cohort, they are accessing HIV and sexual health services. You'll see 1,534. And then for community members who identify female, the highest service access is for nutrition services. It's also kind of interesting to look at the categories that have the highest disparity. And you'll see homeless services, 280 identifying male and 95 female. Finally, last slide, client age by social service category. Once again, this is just, it's just interesting. We want to see who our target population is, who's accessing services, at what point, what stage. You see that 40 to 59 age range is really pretty consistently the time that community members reach out for assistance. Employment, 51% of access is folks in that age range. Financial assistance, 33%. Health, mental health, 41%. And then goes on, 30% for HIV and sexual health, 40% for homeless, 48% for substance abuse. So it gives you a snapshot of who accessed services this first 6 months. I can answer any questions now or later. If we're ready, I will turn it over to Leslie to begin the reporting on the agencies that staff monitor.
If my colleagues don't mind, can we let them do the presentation and then come back with questions? Is that okay with everyone? I can barely see it. Okay. If you're already okay with that, can you just put your hand up? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Leslie, thanks, David.
All right. Hello, everybody, and good evening, Chair Palmieri, Vice Chair Meltzer, and commissioners. As we come into the home stretch of the current 3-year funding cycle and prepare for the next, the agencies I monitor are all holding steady and in some cases showing signs of a strong finish. While the pandemic continues to be an influential factor in service provision, it appears community members are feeling more comfortable accessing services they may have put off during the height of the pandemic and the subsequent variants that followed. This is particularly true in the case of medical and dental services provided through Saban Community Clinic. At the mid-year, Saban Community Clinic is well over goal for general health and medical services, and dental services, which had been deeply impacted by the pandemic, are back on track and also above goal at the mid-year. I'd mentioned this in an earlier report, but it bears repeating here. One of the unintended consequences, and perhaps a silver lining to the pandemic, is that out of necessity, mental health services moved to telehealth appointments. This enabled providers like Saban to see more clients because service was not dependent on the availability of counseling rooms. At a time when the need for mental health services has increased significantly because of the pandemic, the ability to provide more mental health services has been of great value to the health and well-being of the West Hollywood community. And in addition to being able to provide more services, telehealth also allows new clients to be served, clients who otherwise would be unable to travel to the clinic for in-person services. Some of you will recall that with the help of NB Transit, the SOVA food distribution transitioned to home delivery during the pandemic. And last summer, as the pandemic slowed a bit, food distribution resumed at the pantry sites. A small number of clients, however, could no longer come to the pantry sites for groceries. And to SOVA's credit, staff recognized the importance of continuing to provide home delivered groceries to these clients and developed a volunteer-driven, quite literally, home delivery program. And now a small group of homebound older adults are all still able to receive home delivered groceries. The West Hollywood Preschool is unique among our service providers, offering free and sliding scale preschool services to income qualifying families. Furthermore, the preschool operates year-round and starts its day early and ends late, enabling working families to get to work on time and to not have to leave early for childcare pickup. We heard a lot about the struggles experienced by families with young children during the pandemic. The West Hollywood Preschool helped meet the needs of some of those families and operated continuously throughout the pandemic when schools and other childcare centers had no choice but to close. A year-round, full-day, high-quality, and affordable preschool option helps lift families out of poverty while providing socialization and school readiness for young students. Typically, more than half of the West Hollywood preschool families are fully subsidized, and the rest are partially subsidized, paying anywhere between $39 and $497 per month. But in another example of a pandemic silver lining, the state of California waived the family fees for state-funded preschools in July of 2021 and recently extended that waiver until June 2023. So currently all families at the West Hollywood Preschool are attending at no cost. Rental assistance and employment services remain vital to helping people get back on their feet after experiencing significant disruptions in income due to the pandemic. While emergency rental assistance continues to be available to residents, it is becoming harder and harder to prove current financial impact due to COVID-19. Still, the standard rental assistance program is available, and both programs serve as important resources in homeless prevention efforts. When the city first entered into a contract with Planned Parenthood, we were particularly pleased to do so. And perhaps now more than ever, we're proud to support the agency, which has a clinic located right in our community on Santa Monica Boulevard. This year, Planned Parenthood continued to provide West Hollywood community members a comprehensive range of high-quality reproductive and sexual healthcare services, including birth control, testing and treatment for STIs, HIV and counseling, PEP and PrEP, life-saving cancer screenings, and safe abortions. And now I'll turn it over to Derek.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, commissioners. So I'm just going to go in order of the agencies that I monitor, starting with both the Alliance for Housing and Healing and APLA. So both these organizations are still in the process of an official merger. With that merger happening no later than mid-year 2023. The Alliance continues to provide rental assistance for older adults and people living with HIV. The need for emergency rental assistance, though, is decreasing as more people are returning to work, or they've received federal assistance, or they've already maxed out on all of their available assistance. APLA hired a new outreach specialist, so you will see the homeless support services increase, those numbers increase in the next couple of quarters. APLA is now fully staffed with clinical interns for their behavioral health program, and they're seeking new community members for a longer term psychotherapy. So if you know of anybody who could benefit from these services, please go ahead and contact Lydia. Her number is 213-201-1369. For being alive, you see a bounce back in the number of people who are engaging in wellness center activities. And this is a good sign of re-engagement with services, especially after the worst waves of the pandemic so far are now behind us. The syringe services program is also doing very well since they expanded to every Saturday. You can see on their program report that they've actually exceeded their annual goal at mid-year of the number of new and duplicated community members, and also the number of people who keep coming back to receive this service. Betsedic, their eviction defense and prevention program is unique, as you know, because it provides full-scale legal representation to any resident who is facing eviction. Similar programs in Los Angeles County provide mostly advice and counsel. Some do representation with limited capacity, and it's really on a case-by-case basis, but this program does it all. They're currently assisting some of the most vulnerable tenants, such as older adults, especially older adults who are Russian speaking, people with disabilities, people with severe health challenges. And the request for eviction defense has increased exponentially since the program's inception in July of 2020. So the current staffing actually cannot sustain the requests and also the cases. So we'll be taking an item to council on June 27th to increase funding for this program. If approved, it will expand the capacity of the program to add one additional full-time attorney. It will increase the paralegal's time to 100% instead of 50%, and also add an additional paralegal at 30% to add additional support for this program. So far, so good with the eviction defense and defense program. For the LGBT Center's mental health services, I'm going to focus on substance use recovery services because it's seen such a growth in the number of new and duplicated people who are seeking recovery. They've exceeded their annual goal at mid-year for group support attendees, which is a good sign because this was lower at the beginning of the pandemic. It's stated in their narrative, and I pulled this out because it's really interesting, that the high number of group attendees indicates that the program really could benefit from additional groups, which they will be bringing online, specifically harm reduction, disordered eating, and specialized programming for various intersections within the LGBTQ plus community. And they're also want to bring in a dedicated clinician who specializes in substance use for psychotherapy moving forward. The Center Sexual Health Program and WeHo Life programs continue to provide STD testing and treatment services and condom distribution. You'll see for the Sexual Health Program, the numbers are much better than at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 and then also in 2021. So people are starting to come back and get regularly tested, which is a good sign. Men's Health Foundation is also doing really well with PrEP and PEP, both intake and clinical services. You can see that this increase in the number of people accessing PEP, it means that the accessibility of the Santa Monica Express Clinic is there. It's in West Hollywood, and people are now getting to know about it and access services from this organization. Trans-Latino Coalition is on target to meet their goals. One of their success stories I want to share from this quarter two, was about a transgender woman whose parents kicked them out of their home because of their gender identity. The client was sleeping on the street in West Hollywood when the Trans-Latina outreach worker came across them. Trans-Latina collaborated with Essentia to get shelter for the person, and also Trans-Latina helped them get their identity documents in order and is assisting her with employment resources as well as long-term housing resources. And then lastly, for TransCan Work, they're currently offering free 101 workshops for West Hollywood employers and service providers. All the workshops are 60 minutes and take place on Thursday in June from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And this is all through Zoom. There will also be an in-person training on the last Wednesday of June from 3 to 4 p.m. And this is going to be at the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center located on Martell near Plummer Park. For any questions you might have, or if you want to sign up for the workshop, you can contact Sydney at transcanwork.org, and that's SYDNEY at transcanwork.org. And I'm going to send the flyer out to the commissioners. And that concludes my report. I'm going to pass this over to Joan.
Before Joan goes, Derek, can you send Lydia's number to all the commissioners? Thank you very much.
I will do that.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Joan Mithers, Social Services Program Administrator. The last several reports I've made to the Commission have focused on how our partner agencies and programs pivoted in response to the COVID pandemic. Some of the changes proved to be very effective, and as things have opened up, they've been incorporated into program designs to continue on into the future. Friends Community Center found that virtual meetings for outpatient treatment and case management helped a number of people to be more consistent with attendance. The HIV Education Program Report shows both high numbers and significant achievement of case management goals in areas including access to medical care, moving off the streets and into shelter, food, and legal assistance. At McIntyre House, during the pandemic, instead of seeking employment, residents enrolled in and attended online classes. This proved beneficial to long-term progress, and they are continuing to encourage education along with the return to employment goals. McIntyre House continues to reach West Hollywood community members, and as you'll see in your staff report, they've exceeded goal, and 3 people graduated the residential program and moved into the McIntyre House sober living apartment. Tarzana treatment centers needed to be creative as fewer people were out and about during their outreach. Tarzana staff attend the Being Alive syringe exchange program twice a month, set up a table weekly outside the sheriff's station, participate in the library outreach hours, and continue to partner with other agencies for outreach. As a result, while it's still challenging to get people into treatment, at the mid-year point, they have surpassed their annual goals for outreach contacts. Awakening Recovery is beginning to reach West Hollywood community members. There was 1 person in treatment during the first half of the year. In the current quarter, 2 more West Hollywood community members have entered treatment there. As in-person meetings resumed and they've taken over the operation of the log cabin, the West Hollywood Recovery Center reports high attendance numbers. They continue to offer some Zoom meetings, enabling people who are unable or reluctant to go there in person to participate. The importance of case management became increasingly clear during the pandemic as new needs emerged and ongoing needs increased in intensity. This was evident with services provided by Friends, as mentioned, DCRC, and the JFS Comprehensive Service Center. During the pandemic, Seeds of Hope sent produce to people outside of the West Hollywood Community Housing Corporation buildings covered in their original program design and had it delivered via the county's emergency critical delivery service. When the delivery services ended, Seeds of Hope began a local distribution at Plummer Park, which has steadily grown and now provides fresh produce to some 80 people weekly. I've talked a lot at previous meetings about Project Angel Food and their emergency meals. Everyone who needed to continue receiving meals as the emergency program ended was transitioned onto the ongoing Project Angel Food program or the JFS Meals programs. The pandemic served to make people in the community, as well as healthcare professionals, aware of Project Angel Food, and that awareness is reflected in high service numbers. Also of note is that Project Angel Food has been expanding, contracting with health plans to use meals as a treatment for specific illnesses and conditions. There is very formal evaluation going on currently, but anecdotally, the meals provision appears to significantly reduce hospitalization. I want to end with an example of how the social services delivery system works. Pre-pandemic, there were a few community members facing eviction under the Ellis Act. Not all were able to make decisions that were in their own best interests, and resulting in a high risk of becoming homeless for one of them. Evictions were delayed because of the pandemic and eviction moratoriums. City staff, including housing and rent stabilization and strategic initiatives, as well as our partner agencies, JFS Comprehensive Service Center and Betsedic Legal Services, worked with community members and each other over the last 2 years to get these people housed. Housing and rent stabilization identified available inclusionary housing units, making sure that people facing Ellis evictions are at the top of the eligibility list. Betsedic worked to ensure legal protections and secure extensions to prevent evictions. The JFS social worker worked to encourage reluctant community members to pursue available housing, setting up appointments, offering to accompany them to view apartments, and helping with the paperwork. And all have worked to help keep expectations realistic. It can be complicated, intense, at times frustrating. One situation is not yet resolved, but the effort, the coordination, the patience, and the tenacity are all evidence of a really unique system that ensures that in West Hollywood, individuals do not fall through the cracks. We'll answer questions later, and I will turn it over to Katie right now.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Joan. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Katie Egan. And I monitor, as a social services program administrator for the city, I monitor the city's contracts with our homeless services agencies, as well as the contracts that we have with the LGBT Center's Senior Services Program, and also the JFS Food and Nutrition Program. I want to first turn to give a brief overview of homeless services so far in the current grant year. So between October 1st and March 31st, the city's shelter providers, so that's Essentia and the LGBT Center's youth program, served 21 adults and 27 youth for a total of 3,160 bed nights. During that same period, our contracted agency partners placed 19 unhoused community members into stable housing. These 19 individuals are in addition to the 106 unhoused community members who were placed into housing over the last 2 grant years, making a total of 125 people who have transitioned into housing in this current grant cycle. In addition, agencies provided housing retention services to 95 formerly homeless community members in the first 6 months of the grant year. These housing retention services are a crucial aspect of the city's work to stem the flow back into homelessness. Through these services, agencies provide individuals with the ongoing support that they need to transition successfully into stable housing and then remain housed for the long term. Just to give some extra context around those numbers, the West Hollywood homeless population was estimated to be around 112 in the official 2020 homeless count, which was conducted by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, also known as LAHSA. With 125 community members placed into stable housing over the last 2.5 years, these outcomes demonstrate the really fluid nature of the city's homeless population. I know I've spoken to this to the commission previously, And as we know, there are many things that contribute to the overall number of unhoused community members living in the city. And some of those factors include the statewide affordable housing shortage, our unique boundaries with the city of LA and Beverly Hills, and our reputation as a safe place for folks who are experiencing homelessness, especially for homeless LGBTQ youth. Our agency partners were able to achieve these significant outcomes despite facing ongoing challenges related to COVID-19 and the housing crisis. An example of these challenges is well demonstrated by Essentia, one of the city's primary homeless services agencies. By mid-year, Essentia placed 5 unhoused community members into stable housing, putting them at 33% of their annual goal. While this number is likely to increase in the next 6 months, the limited availability of affordable housing combined with a high number of people in need means that landlords have the power to be very selective when choosing tenants. This high demand, low supply rental market is extremely competitive, and that makes it all the more difficult to place community members into housing. Our partners at Step Up on Second also faced a few challenges in Q1 and Q2. In particular, staff transitions and high caseloads resulted in a low number of new clients enrolling in the program during the first half of the year. That said, the program was able to onboard 3 additional staff members in Q2, which is really exciting. And the program anticipates that enrollment will pick up as the new staff are fully trained. I got an update actually from the program manager, Clifford Roberts, today that said that they have 8 folks who have been able to enroll in this current quarter. So that's encouraging news. In addition to their ongoing programming, the city's homeless services providers were actively involved in community engagement with both housed and unhoused community members alike. Staff from Essentia, Step Up, and the LGBT Center's Youth Services Program, as well as the Transgender Economic Empowerment Program and Housing Works, all participated in the Homeless Initiative community discussion that the city hosted this past February. Through their participation, the city sought to better inform the public about the work of homeless services agencies and directly address the challenges that we all face in the community when dealing with the housing crisis. Also in February, staff from Step Up and the Youth Services Program assisted with the LAHSA annual homeless count. And we anticipate that results from the count will be made available to the public this summer. Lastly, this actually occurred right after the mid-year point, but I did want to just give a brief update on the LGBT Center's Senior Services Program. They were able to reopen for in-person services at 50% capacity this last April. Reopening has been a phased process, and staff are testing 3 different types of programming, both in-person, hybrid, and also continuing with some Zoom-based classes as well. With cases again increasing and some older adults not yet comfortable returning to in-person activities, the agency anticipates that it will be a gradual process to get service levels back to pre-pandemic levels, and they will continue to adjust their in-person programming as needed based on COVID-19 rates. Because older adults are such a high-risk population for COVID-19, any participants wanting to utilize in-person indoor programming are required to both wear a mask and be fully vaccinated, including a booster. So I think that concludes my presentation. Am I turning it back over to David, or are we opening it up for questions?
David, do you have anything that you want to say before we go around with questions or comments?
I just very much appreciate my staff. I think all the reports were just excellent. I hope you as well appreciated the information, and we are available for questions.
Okay, I'll go around, and if we have any questions, we can ask, or anything that you want to say. Commissioner Byers?
Can you skip me? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Freiberg?
I just had 2 questions. Well, a question on 2 partners who didn't reapply for funding, which was the McIntyre House, which had notifiable achievements that I think, Joan, you were talking about. And I didn't see them apply for funding for the next contracting. That and Pause LA. Is that true?
Yes, those are both programs that I work with, starting with McIntyre House has made a decision to focus their efforts on working towards being certified to be reimbursed under drug Medi-Cal, which is a long-term strategy that will strengthen them as an agency. They have assured us that they will continue to serve West Hollywood community members as they always have before, but they did make that decision not to reapply for the new cycle. For Pause LA, if you recall, they reduced their contract and funding this year. They have just had a dwindling number of clients over the last number of years, and it has been a challenge for them. They too have indicated that they will absolutely continue to serve West Hollywood community members, but they've chosen not to go into the contracting process for the coming cycle.
Okay. And I did read in their report that they were having staffing issues and things like that.
Just to clarify, Pause was not having staffing issues internally. They did have their longtime program director retire, but the internal staffing was okay. What they were having challenges with was getting veterinary care for the clients. And I think we have all heard about some of the pandemic related challenges in that vets have been inundated with people needing service, and some of the protocols that require distancing have made those veterinary visits take more time than previously. And so that was an area that they were struggling with a little, but I don't believe that was the reason alone that they chose not to apply for funding in the next cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it concerns me because we don't have any other partners that even come close to what they do. So have we looked into finding somebody else, or is that it for this type of program?
David, do you want to answer that?
I can actually just jump in and say, just
Okay.
because they are not applying for funding doesn't mean they still won't be able to serve community members in need.
They have reassured us with that information because our community members do still meet the criteria to get service through the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Freiberg. Commissioner Davis.
I'd like to echo David Juni's comment about his staff. We have an incredibly good and talented staff. Very nice report from all of you. I just have one question, and that is the age brackets for the age of clients, the 24 to 39, the 40 to 59. I felt that these were skewed. I thought we talked about this, and it was going to change at the next funding cycle. Is that still on plan to do that?
Yes.
So I can be happy that this is the last time I'm going to have to look at this. Because
Yeah.
I really do believe that 49 to 59 is just way too many. There's too many variables in there, and there's a big difference between a 40-year-old and a 59-year-old.
Yeah.
So, but I am glad we're still on track to do that.
Correct.
All right, then that's it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Byers.
Thank you. I really appreciate the reports. There was so much information that I was sort of teasing out that I'm looking towards, I guess, in this next funding cycle, just answers and concerns I might have. I noticed of that ZEDIC that a note that because of the lack of legal protections at the county or statewide level for non-payment of rent and the amount of people that they're experiencing in that realm of non-payment of rent, that there's sort of a lot of new cases that they may be seeing, and litigation is becoming increasingly time intensive. So my concern is that without increased capacity, we won't be able to support the evolving need around that that rental case. Is that?
Excuse me, I'm hearing an awful lot of noise. I can't really hear Commissioner Byers. Is everyone else hearing it?
I got here. There was a little bit of noise, but I can answer that, Commissioner Byers, that we are taking an item on June 27th to council to request additional funding. And this would be to add a full-time attorney, another full-time attorney to the one that we already have, and then also a full-time paralegal and an additional support paralegal. So yes, that should address the capacity issues and help make the services more efficient and more timely, because evictions do happen fast. So we need the fast response. So yes.
Thank you. And I have one more question to that end. I heard or read at some point folks who are maxed out on available rental assistance. At what point do people become maxed out on available rental assistance?
Who is that going to?
So currently, Commissioner Byers, the structure of the program is that folks can access 5 grants.
5, okay. And then should they come back for another grant, they're not able to at that point from that agency?
Correct. We are looking, we've met with NCJW. We're going to meet with the Alliance, because as Leslie mentioned, the number of requests for emergency rental assistance has really dwindled. There is still a significant amount of funding available, emergency funding. So we're working with NCJW, and we will work also alongside with the Alliance to propose ongoing support for folks who are still impacted by COVID. So we're working on that. And then, what's been interesting, and you'll most likely see in the proposals, is that this experience with COVID and the need for rental assistance really bumped up the number of community members accessing the regular rental assistance for the Alliance. So our folks, our older adults, who many of them who are on fixed incomes, that has just kind of the awareness of the availability has bumped that up. And we're looking in those proposals that we'll see increased requests for funding for the regular rental assistance program.
Thank you for that information. I just also was, I guess, happy to know after our really extensive discussion in May around mental health services that the LGBT Center is implementing or has a strategy and works to sort of reduce that really long wait list by creating additional hires. So I was really thrilled to see that and just wanted to make note. Other than that, really appreciate the presentations. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Byers. Commissioner Borelli.
Where to begin? David, I think I appreciated you're going through our demographics. I always like to look at those and compare. I think in general, comparing to the LA County, we're skewed just because of the makeup of our city in so many ways. I deal with that with grant writing for my day job, but I think the numbers make a lot of sense to me in terms of who the demographics of West Hollywood are and who access services. And I agree with you. I think this was probably one of the best staff reports in total. There were nuggets throughout each person's presentation that were really like, good job, excellent, yay us. Counting how many homeless community members got into service, got into LAHSA, got into permanent supportive housing, definitely heartening. I love reading Pathways reports every time and seeing what they're serving. Rainbow fruit skewers always lighten my load at the end of the day. But 2 things kept sticking out to me throughout this: housing and food. Housing and food. All of you touched on housing and food. Keep getting people housed, keeping people housed, providing resources to make sure folks who are currently housed stay in their house. And I appreciate Commissioner Byers bringing up the words Chair Palmieri and I often use: no barriers to service, no barriers to service. So if there are funds left over, we can get people additional rental assistance. That would be fantastic. I still cheer us all on thinking about this program in place. And 3 years ago, I think we put $50,000 into this rental assistance program for all of our service providers. So go West Hollywood and go Human Services and Social Services. I didn't find anything shocking in these reports coming out of COVID, staying into COVID. I think our staff touched on them really well in terms of the things that are working. Virtual mental health care, and folks, I'm glad that folks were looking into keeping those, and things that have been challenging. And I wondered in particular about TEEP at the LA LGBT Center. I know the LA LGBT Center sometimes have programs that hit rough patches, but it sort of struck me at some point that maybe now that we have 2 other regular social service providers working in the same area of specifically for trans community members, if maybe that's sort of spread out too thin, and that's the numbers might all add up previously. My big question was just to ask staff directly if there were any jump out concerns that they had in these 6 months reports and going forward. It sounds like some of the ones that you were concerned about already have started to show some jumps forward improvements in this next quarter. Is that a correct assessment? Leslie's nodding her head.
Yeah,
Great.
I think so.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work. And thanks to all the folks that showed up tonight.
Thanks, Commissioner Borelli. Vice Chair Meltzer.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just want to, I agree with David. Your staff and you, David, are really incredible, and the reports are incredible. And I have no questions. It's kind of overwhelming, actually, and it's just wonderful. So thank you, everybody. I do have just one question, which has really nothing to do. Somebody said something about Tarzana Treatment Center that has an outreach table outside the sheriff's office. Also, I guess in the library, that they've gone back to, some of our programs have gone back to working out of the library. Can you tell me which programs are doing that?
Sure thing. So back in May, we reinstituted the drop-in services at the library. I'm going off the dome, so I hope I don't leave anybody out. But Essentia, Step Up on Second, Tarzana, APLA Health, and the LGBT Center's youth programs and mental health programs are all participating. They all take different shifts.
How many? You're talking really fast.
How many? Sorry.
No, that's okay. How many programs is that? Because this happens in 5 days, right?
Yes, so it's over 5 days. There's at least one agency who participates per day. On certain days, 2 agencies will be in the building at the same time. So I believe that was 5 or 6 agencies, but I'd have to say them again. 6, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Because the LGBT Center has 2 programs that participate.
Does the Sheriff's Department, is that another outlet for our programs? Because if Tarzana can have an outreach table weekly, can some of our other programs do that as well?
Joan, do you want to speak to the Tarzana?
Yeah, Tarzana is there, but actually Stuart is here, and I don't know, Stuart, if you want to unmute yourself. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you can explain how that works.
Yeah, not a problem. So we do a table every Friday at the sheriff's station in the front. I guess they have a picnic table area. And that was sort of an offshoot of our MOU that we have with them that started with trying to divert people from, after being arrested for some charges, they could go into treatment. We weren't really seeing a lot of referrals for a while, but we wanted to maintain that connection with them. And so we sort of agreed, and they allowed us to table in front of their station every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. So that was something that we sort of just started because this is before the library.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I had never heard that before. That's interesting. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Vice Chair Meltzer. I just have a few things to say and a few questions. Derek, for Bethesda Legal Services, you said that you're going to be going to the council for funding. What is the amount that you might be asking for?
I don't have it in front of me, but their budget will be 312,133, and that will be the fiscal year starting July 1st and running to the end of June 2023. We decided to do that because these are emergency funds separate from the social service funds.
Thank you. Let me see. I'm a little concerned about Paws and Mac House, and I understand that they're going to be serving the community as always, and they're both commendable providers. But if we're not going to be funding them in any way, why would they do outreach? I mean, I understand that they would accept our people, but what will the outreach be, or is that going to be on social services to do that? Maybe David, you can answer that.
All right, I was trying to find the exact amount for the Betsetic contract. I think, Derek, we are requesting, I think it's 257,000 because we interrupted the last contract amendment. We are now putting them on the fiscal year. So there were 3 months left for the contract amendment we're currently in. So those 3 months, which would have been July, August, or excuse me, April, May, June, will now go towards the next fiscal year. So anyway, we're asking for approximately 257,000. We can get that amount for you. And certainly if commissioners would like to speak to that item, it will be under unfinished business on June 27th. So yes, it will be on the city to continue to, keep a presence for the availability of those services. We will, continue to have our social services guide, which is not just contracted agencies, it's also collaborative agencies. So, as Joan mentioned, both, for all of our contracted services, for the most part, they're all serving, not only West Hollywood, but the larger community. The advantage and why we want to have these contract services is that we do want to be able to assure that those services are available to West Hollywood community members. Thus, that's why we get into a contract, we set up a scope of services, we have those agreed upon goals for, how many community members that we expect that folks will be able to bring into service. So those services are still available. We don't have that piece, that kind of leverage piece. These are long-time, collaborative partners and contracted partners. So I know that we will stay in touch with them and continue to, bring visibility to the availability of the services. There are other, as you, especially Chair Palmieri, know, there are other treatment organizations that we do the same. Cath Center that we work closely with, as we all know. Mike, and I'm going to blank on Mike's last name from the center. Right, Rizzo went over. So yes, it's great to have the contract and to have that close relationship, but we also do continue to communicate. We'll bring them into our PNCs, our planning coordination meetings, and we'll continue to work very closely with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, David. I think I wanted to hear that, but I also wanted the newer commissioners, not that I'm claiming to know everything, because certainly we all know that I don't, but I wanted the newer commissioners to know that we don't not only have providers, but we do have collaborative partners that we may not be funding, but that we do work with. And David, I believe one of the longest terms is AHF, that we give them parking for data. Is that correct?
So we continue to reserve parking for them for their testing van. That, years ago, and it may have predated you, Commissioner Palmieri, but we did have a contract with AHF for HIV testing. We actually got into that contract. The county was funding HIV testing. We said, hey, we would like to provide additional funding for STD testing and treatment. So we got into a contract with AHF. We had it for a couple of years, and basically they said, we would, if you offer us this space, we will continue to provide these services. They were not looking for the additional funding from the city. So that has turned out to be, I think that's, one of the, hidden gems with the city and services provided. We have gotten, an incredible amount of service from AHF for HIV and STD testing, just for the expense of offering them free parking.
Yeah. It's
been a great collaborative relationship with AHF.
It's a great partnership. Joan, I'm a little bit confused about this. When an agency is applying for drug Medi-Cal, they cannot have contracts with other or other contracts. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, but they would not have the contract for treatment services. So typically the West Hollywood is the funder of last resort. So if we take as an example, Tarzana treatment, when they get reimbursed through Drug Medi-Cal, we fund the agency for their outreach efforts and for other services. So if someone is getting Drug Medi-Cal reimbursement, they would be fully reimbursed for those services. They would have the option to apply to the city for other kinds of services. But my understanding is they just have the need right now to focus their efforts on putting that into place.
Great. Thank you. That clarified it a little bit for me. Thanks. So one other question, I think this is my last. David, you said that there was an amount of emergency rental assistance still available. What is the available amount?
So for NCJW, we have approximately $210,000 left. And for the Alliance for Housing and Healing, and both Derek and Leslie can correct me, but Alliance, I think it's about 27,000 left. Okay. We didn't get the final allocation for NCJW. The city said, okay, so give us an estimate. What's going to get us through the 2020 through 2021 contract year? Give us an estimate for the total amount. We said 150,000 for NCJW, and they have not touched that yet. So we have 150,000 left from that, 60,000 left from the previous. With emergency funding, this rolls over. It will continue to be available. And the difference between this and social services contracts, one of the differences is that we, with the emergency funding, we apply to FEMA for reimbursement. So yes, there's significant amount remaining.
Wait, that's an amazing amount to have left, but we also have to look at the number of folks that have exhausted their ability to receive a grant. That, as I believe Commissioner Byers brought up, I think this was Commissioner Byers, that there were 5 grants available, and that's from both Alliance and the others. They can't get from both. They also cannot get aging in place. I think it's $1,000. They cannot get that, but you can only get one or the other from one agency and the other, correct? You can't go to both agencies.
Correct.
And then before you can even access that, well, at this stage, they can't any longer, but you had to go to housing is key. And then whatever, if you were turned down or whatever it was, then you could go to these agencies that we're providing. So it did become a little bit of a confusion, not that it's anyone's fault, it's just that it's a complicated topic. But I do think that, I really think that we need to look at the amounts that are being requested are going down. Yes, indeed, they are, because people have exhausted their ability to apply for more. I think that's all. Yeah. All right, anybody else? Anything? All right, folks, thanks so much. And thanks for everyone for showing up. In case there were any questions, I appreciate it. Just give me a second here. So this brings us to 4B, preparation for the 22-25 social services funding process. I believe this is going directly to Joan. Is that correct?
Good evening again, commissioners. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the narrative portion of the proposal. The narrative to me is sort of the heart of the application. It's a place to describe and explain the program, the people to be served, why it's needed, and how it will accomplish its goals. The instructions for the narrative from the RFP document are included in tonight's staff report as an attachment. The information to include and its organization is clearly stated and easy to follow for those completing the proposal. As you review the proposal, you should be able to refer back and forth from the instructions to the completed product to ensure that everything is covered. When reviewing the proposal narratives, along with making sure the applicant addressed all of the items requested, obviously, the most important thing is to evaluate the content, whether the plan addresses the community's needs and makes sense or is designed in a way that can achieve the stated goals. I'm not going to read through every section, but I will call your attention to a few things. First, outreach. As you know, how community members learn about services is critical. We ask the agencies to tell us exactly how they will reach people in need. If there is street outreach and/or after-hours capabilities, that should be included. We've also asked for specific information about how agencies will reach out to community members of color. This RFP is for services in West Hollywood. And the reason that I'm stating the obvious is because most agencies applying for funding provide services beyond West Hollywood. But the proposal should relate everything back to West Hollywood. The discussion of need, the agency's experience, program description, everything. If the program is not currently serving West Hollywood, there should be enough relevant information, why the services are needed, how community members will access service, and why the program should be funded by the city. The service history section asks about unduplicated people served by the program. Unduplicated people refers to unique individuals served during the contract year. So unduplicated means that a person is counted once during the year. Please note that the staffing section asks for information about how individuals with lived experience are incorporated into agency and program staffing. In West Hollywood, the provision of social services is considered a partnership between all the contracted agencies and the city. This is different than with many funders. It's important for agencies to understand and include information about how the program has and will partner with other agencies, coordinate services, and with the city as well to ensure that community members receive the services they need. At the end, there's a chance to highlight what is unique, new, and creative about the proposed program. And this is an opportunity for agencies to include important information that's not covered in other sections. As a final note, the narrative is a separate section from the scope and budget, but please review these sections together to make sure that they fit. So the goals that are proposed in the scope should clearly reflect the description in the program narrative, and the budget should clearly tie back to both the program narrative as well as the goals in the scope. And with that, staff's available for questions and you're ready.
Thank you, Joan. I'll go around again. Commissioner Byers, can you go first this time?
Yeah, I can. I don't have any questions though. Thanks so much for the detailed walkthrough of this. Feeling really confident and ready to go. Thanks to all your support.
Thank you, Commissioner Byers. Commissioner Borelli?
No questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Borelli. Commissioner Davis?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Freiberg?
No questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Freiberg. Vice Chair Meltzer, any questions?
I have one quick question, and you've probably answered this 87 times. The difference between new unduplicated clients, new and ongoing clients. What's the difference with the new?
So, and you have lots of company in having questions about that. So in the contract year, everyone starts over the beginning of the contract year. So October 1st, every single person is considered new for that contract year. However, The next month, a person who did not receive services in October or the next quarter. So everyone in the first who receives services in the first quarter is new. After that, they would be considered ongoing if they have already received service in the contract year. So if I come in for counseling in October, I'm a brand new client, regardless of service in previous years. I'm brand new in October, but come the second quarter, if I continue to receive services, I'm ongoing. Does that make sense? Does that clarify, or is that more confusing?
Makes sense right now.
Okay.
But I'll be back.
So your new and ongoing figure is a sum of everyone who is new in that quarter, plus people from previous quarters. In October, in the first quarter, October through December, everyone is, the numbers are the same for new and ongoing because everyone's new. Come the second quarter, you're only new if you started getting services in the second quarter, and you're ongoing if you already received in the first quarter.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Vice Chair?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I just want to thank Joan very much for all of this unbelievable information. All right, let's 5, excluded consent. There are no excluded consent. 6 items from staff. Who would like to begin that?
Derek, I think, had an update for folks, and then I've got a little information.
Is Derek here? I don't see him.
Maybe I'll start out and let him come back.
Okay.
I do want to, this came up in agenda review, and first, I'm assuming that everybody received their file boxes of proposals, and that you also received the spreadsheet of the requests, the current funding amount, the requested amount, the total funds. We have, we're trying to keep everything on a timeline. It's going to go by fast, and yes, there's a lot of reading and questions to be asked. Came up in agenda review. I'm going to out Vice Chair Meltzer. She said, David, oh my gosh, we have to have our questions in by this Friday. I would like to offer that we extend the time for the commission to ask questions of the applicants until the following Friday.
Oh, great.
The 24th. And then we extend the time for the applicants to answer your questions until the next Friday, which is July 1st. That should still give us enough time, because we track everything, questions asked, answers given, and we will put that as an attachment to the item when we take recommendations. But we should still have time to do that. We'd also, to be honest, and for the commissioners who've been here for a while, we don't want to save all the questions till the end. We don't want to have all the questions at the Tuesday, July 12th commission meeting. It's not, it's an uncomfortable meeting if all of a sudden we're grilling an agency, on the spot. We'd much rather take the time, get your questions in, get those answers provided. So I think we're fine schedule-wise to extend that period of time for commissioner questions until Friday the 24th. And I hope everybody still understands you were right again, Commissioner Meltzer. It didn't make sense to make hard copies of those, the template. You can fill it out electronically. They're fillable forms. Submit them to the social services RFP at weho.org email. So submit them there. As you submit them, staff will answer, and you can designate, oh, this is a question for staff, or this is a question for Step Up. We will get them to those applicants so they can begin to respond with the answers. So I hope that gives you a little bit more time, because Friday the 17th is almost here. So I wanted to mention that as well. I don't see Derek yet. So I will also, Diane Kahn-Epstein from Strategic Initiatives, she wanted me to remind the commission As you probably remember, council approved revise for the guaranteed income pilot program that is opening this up to beyond the original version of it, which was going to be for the LGBTQ community. And now the pilot is still the first older adult focused pilot in the country. And it is intended to provide $1,000 a month for 18 months to 25 recipients who will be randomly selected from a pool of applicants who meet the following eligibility criteria. Number 1, West Hollywood resident. Number 2, 50 years of age or older. Number 3, living on an income of $41,400 or less. Everyone who applied for the first pilot is still eligible for the revised pilot and will be automatically entered into the new applicant pool. So I just wanted to remind folks of that. The application will open later this week, starting on Friday, June 17th, and will close on Sunday, June 26th. In July, the participants will be randomly selected. If you need more information about the program, then please reach out to Diane Con-Epstein at dconepstein@weho.org. So I wanted to get that out. And there's Derek, and I think he's going to give an update on the fentanyl test strip.
Yes. One second, please. David, can you send out those 2 new dates to the commissioner so that we have it right in front of us?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Derek.
Of course. Sorry, I stepped away. I thought the last item was going to be much longer, but it wasn't. So I wanted to thank Commissioner Freiberg for mentioning fentanyl the other day and making me delve deep, the other month, not the other day, the other month, making me delve deep into the fentanyl statistics. It was overwhelming looking at that data. And it really prompted us to purchase 8,000 fentanyl test strips for the Pride weekend that just occurred. So we handed out about 7,400 test strips with a palm card with instructions about how to use those test strips with a little bit of information about fentanyl. So all in all, it was a success. We have about 600 fentanyl test strips left for other events that we'll have throughout the year. So I wanted to say thank you and also give you that update.
Is that it? Thank you, Derek.
David, actually, could I jump in really quickly? I just thought of this while we were on the call, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw some positive news coming out of City Council at their June 6th meeting. They approved a resolution to purchase the Holloway Motel property in order to convert it into interim housing. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that exciting development. There are also 2 meetings about the project that we're opening up to the community to get feedback that will be happening next Wednesday, June 22nd. One meeting will be at 12 p.m. The other will be at 7 p.m. And community members are encouraged to attend either session. And there'll be information just presented about the project itself from city staff. That will be happening over Zoom, and folks can sign up for either session by visiting the city's website at weho.org/calendar. You'll be able to see both of those things on June 22nd and sign up there.
Thank you very much. Derek, I did want to ask you a question about fentanyl strips, or actually just about fentanyl. About 2 or 3 months ago, you mentioned something called Dead Man that was on its way to Los Angeles or the West Hollywood area. And that was a stronger type of fentanyl. Any update on that?
I can get one. It was Being Alive that gave me some of that information about Dead Man and about some of the statistics. I know that Being Alive's on the call today, but we're not at a time to discuss. So I'm going to follow up with Jamie and then get back to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Is there any, who am I asking this of? Is there any more public comments? Joyce?
We don't have anyone for public comments. I don't see. If you would like to make a comment during this time, if you would just please use the raise hand feature, and you'll be called upon to speak. Okay, looks like we don't have anyone for public comment.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Items from commissioners, I'll go around. Anything from Commissioner Davis? Nothing. Anything from Commissioner Freiberg?
Yes, just two things. I am really concerned about Pause LA. I know they had said that the numbers are down, but I think, pet adoption is pretty much up since COVID. A lot of people can't afford veterinary care, so they don't get a pet, and a pet, can help a lot of people with loneliness, especially, homebound residents. And I just would really encourage the city to look for a new partner. I don't know if I can do that in this way, but if that would be possible, if we could do something like that. How does that work, David?
So I did want to kind of add when you brought it up first, Commissioner Freiberg, because we're gonna reach out. We will reach out to, of course, to Pause. We still have a contract through September. Joan's been in discussion with them for a while about this. I'm also going to reach out to Helen Collins and Facilities, who actually also has worked with a few different agencies that the city works with as far as like animal abuse and other, we've had issues with feral cats. So we're going to reach out to Helen Collins, the manager of facilities, and see if there are some potential partners or additional support we can get through those collaborative partners. So I definitely did hear you. You're certainly not the only, person who is concerned about this. I told Joan, we obviously had a sense that they were not going to reapply. They had talked about it. We had to keep them in the game for the last year. But I know that this is a long-term partner of the city. It is a valuable service, as you mentioned, Commissioner Freiberg, especially veterinary services. They're so expensive. So we will do our kind of diligence to see if there's some other partners, and also, continue that conversation with Pause if they have other providers that might be able to serve the community. So yes, heard it. And I think we're going to see other folks that are concerned about both Pause and McIntyre House.
Yeah.
Both long-term partners.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the other thing, I just want to continue the city to, promote the social services on their free platforms on social media. Just keep putting it out there. It's free. Why not just keep using it? Use the city chat. Am I the only one that watches the city channel? I mean, I do watch it. Oh, I am the only one. But I don't know why it's not utilized. I guess maybe because nobody watches it but me. But I just wanted to put that out there. If we could promote the services on those free platforms even more, just keep pumping it out there. And that's it. Oh, and I wanted to thank Brian and Emmanuel for their presentation, and for staff for all the effort that you guys put into this, because it's so much, but everything is so organized, and I really appreciate that. It makes it so much easier on us. And so thank you. And thank you, Derek, for that update. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Freiberg. My screen just went all different, so now I'm going to have to ask if you spoke. Did you speak yet, Commissioner Byers?
Not yet.
Okay, you're next.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to show gratitude to the staff of the Social Services Department, who I saw running around and working really hard during Pride. And if I didn't see you, that's okay. I'm sure you were doing amazing work too, but I caught Derek and tried to chase him down around the Ferris wheel, but he was off on a mission, and ran into Dee at the L Project. And it was just really special to see how much our city put into making that event such a fabulous gathering. I was also really moved by the amount of service providers that made themselves really visible during that event. I took the time to go booth by booth and just thank people and sort of check out what they were offering, and thought it was really fantastic to see that much of the sort of social safety net surface in a space like Pride. And it wasn't in sort of a bummer way at all. It was really uplifting. People brought really amazing interactive things. And I just really appreciated what this Pride ended up being in terms of the sort of surfacing of the broader social service community. So thanks for that hard work. I also just wanted to give a shout out because I stopped by and enjoyed the Sizzle Carnival in big ways, got a prize. So thanks for making that space available, and appreciate you all for the presentations tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Byers. Commissioner Borelli, did you speak?
No.
You don't need to if you don't want to.
I got a list. I'm gonna go longer now. Commissioner Freiberg, while you and Mr. Juni were discussing Pause LA and the importance of animals, I had a 8-year-old Frenchie come sit next to me, give me the huge eyes and go, basically pay attention to me right now. Yes, animals are important. I wanted to, sorry, I just got off topic for a second. My bad. I think it's a good place to start talking about staff and giving shout outs to staff. And maybe a little bit of this is for our newer commissioners who are here, one is not. I think my first year during the funding cycle, I was anxious, freaked out, and a little overwhelmed about the amount of proposals received and amount of work, effort, time, reading, scoring goes into it. And I trust that we are all dedicated to doing what's right and best for the city. I think what I learned in particular after that first year was trust the staff. Not do the work. Of course, do the work, read, ask questions, get the questions back to staff so they can answer them or get them out to the social services part. But breathe, read, do what you need to do, don't overthink it, and trust that the staff's going to guide us through this process and come back with some pretty dynamic recommendations that I bet we'll be pretty close to. Lastly, I want to send a birthday shout out to Commissioner Davis, whose birthday is later this week. I believe it's the 17th. And Vice Chair Meltzer, who has a birthday coming up in very early July, a Yankee Doodle Dandette. And also just a shout out to former Commissioner Ruth Williams, who is having a health crisis right now. Many of us consider Ruth a friend. Many of us have worked with her on many different things over decades. And I know we're all thinking good thoughts for her and her family right now. I wish everybody well. Have a good evening.
Vice Chair Meltzer, anything?
Thank you. Well, I hate to step on what Sam said, but this is the third time I've been doing this, and I remain anxious and freaked out about it. So I know that's no comfort to you, but it is true, as David knows and as Jimmy knows. But I learned a great deal. And I just want to tell you that the JFS Awe program, for those of you who are interested in improvisation, they are having improv classes for the next 3 weeks on Mondays. You have to be 55 and over. That's one of the good things about getting older. But if you're interested in improvisation, let me know. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just want to say thank you to staff for all this hard work. It clearly is a lot of work, and we are inundated with information. I agree with Commissioner Borelli to just please take a breath and, go through it, take a walk, go through something, take a walk, put on some music or something in between each one so you don't freak out and pound your head with all these numbers and pages. It'll be fine. Ruth Williams is such a dear friend of mine, and this is such a sad moment for me, and I'm just praying that all might be okay. She was the very first commissioner that I became friends with 20 some odd years ago when there was some major hate crime in the city, and I went to the Safety Commission, and she came, I think it was Trev Brody, right, Sam? And she came up to me after the commission and hugged me and assured me that they were doing the best that they could do, and that Linda Castro, who was the captain at the time, was working night and day on this case. So I just want to give her a shout out. I just want to say this out loud, and I know things happen, but we've lost Van Ness. We're now losing Mac House. We lost Long Beach, or was underutilizing Long Beach, and it is giving me some concern. I do know that no one will be turned away for services. I'm very clear on that, but our services, our providers are dwindling. I agree with Commissioner Freiberg about Pause LA. My dog is everything, but during my surgery, I have a crowd of friends that took care of my dog and that walk my dog and that feed my dog, but some people don't have that. Some people need these services, and they are important. And, I know a lot of people say, well, it's just an animal, but to some of us, our dogs are a family. And I hope indeed, David, that you can figure something out with who you said you were going to call. Derek, I'd be really appreciative if you came up with the information on Dead Man. It would mean a lot to me. Sizzle was in a great area of Pride. I was really thrilled with our space. It was walk-through space. It was across the street from the Ferris wheel. We had a lot of space. We had some challenges this year because of staffing, some changes in staffing at the last minute. That being said, it still was a very successful showing. Certainly not the 11,000 people that we had pre-COVID, but no one expected that. No one expected 11,000 people to come through. But what we did have was great for me. I was very happy with it. And we had a lot of dedicated providers there giving out their information and chatting the people up and trying to let people understand that there's a way out if they're using, or if they have a friend or family member that's using. Other than that, I don't have anything else. And I would like to adjourn this meeting. Can I just say goodbye? Can I say see you next month?
David has a question.
David.
Just real quick, I wanted to give a shout out and kudos to Dee, who's assisting us tonight. And Dee took the lead this year with the Dyke March. This is the first time that we've done the in-person Dyke March since 2019, when Corey Roskin was the lead. Dee did a fantastic job with all of the support of Leslie Eisenberg. He did a great job this year, and I'm just really excited for future events under Dee's leadership. So thank you, Dee.
Good. Thank you, Dee. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:00.